which is essentially the RightWay program, which is essentially our soil sampling program for farmers. So this is what we're seeing as the problem, essentially, is that, okay, on the farm you need to make money, and in our area of the state, we haven't made a whole lot of money here in the last couple of years. And that's a continuous cycle, that those margins are super small, weather's not been our friend, and things have not been all that great. So that's where it's like, okay, how can we be more efficient with what we're putting out there on the farm? How can I make sure that I'm getting the most bang for my buck and the decisions that I'm making and whatnot? And traditionally, it's been, hey, you saying, I need to make more money, which is what we all got to do and run our farm as a business. We got to make more money. And so big ag over the last 40, 50 years or more has been saying, we got to raise more yield. We got to feed the world. We got 9.5 billion people that we got to feed. And I've spent the beginning part of this month, a couple weeks in South Africa, and at each of my talks, I told the guys part of the problem in the U.S. is that we've been preached to for the last 40, 50 years that we got to raise yields. More yield, more yield, more yield, more inputs to be able to do that, more money spent to be able to feed 9.5 billion people. And I asked them down there, how many of you think that that's true? That it's the U.S. farmer's sole job to feed the 9.5 billion people? And they just laughed and none of them raised their hands. The reason being is they are all raising more food too. Those guys are raising 180 bushel corn in the desert and that kind of stuff. Like, they can do well down there. What we got to do, and plus Iowa is a net importer of corn to begin with, so we do need to continue to raise more yield. That's not my point. We got to continue to raise more, but we need to raise better quality product as well. So, but right now, okay, so back to the slide. The issue is, okay, we need to raise more yield, is what Big Ag is telling us. More yield, so you go to the co-op and say, hey, I need more yield. You gotta make more money. They say, all right, more yield, here you need more fertilizer. More fertilizer, then they say, okay, we're gonna go out there and do a 2.5 acre grid. Just put those points out there to be able to see, here's where we're gonna take our samples from and get a lot of data, but it's very expensive to be able to do that and pull in these data points that are basically randomly put out there. And you got somebody's gonna come out and pull their soil sample. They sample from right around the four-wheeler, usually 6 soil sample cores, put it in the bag, go to the next zone. Or go to the next grid, drive up to the grid, pull samples around it, go to the next one. And then they're doing a test at the lab that's barely scratching the surface, especially when you compare it to what Brett's talking about with the microbiome testing and stuff. It's crazy that the testing that we've been looking at, just scratching the surface with our organic matter and pH and phosphorus and magnesium and calcium, potassium, a little bit of nitrogen and sulfur as well, barely scratching the surface on what actually is going on in the plant. The plant uses like 73 nutrients, and we're only applying maybe 5 in a year, and we're only looking at a handful of them in our soil testing. There's a lot more going on out there in the soil. So, but anyway, the co-op gets that data back from the lab. Most of them right here. We're using Midwest labs, we use them too, and a wide variety of different labs. To get that data back, and they run it through the algorithm that no matter what, it says, well, you at least need to apply your carbon removal rate, but we're gonna bump that up a little bit more. We're gonna sell you the product, we're gonna go apply it, and then at the end of the year, all those margins have been chipped away, and at the end of the year, you're still stuck with kind of the same system where it's always, I gotta make more money, because it's crop prices are not good, and kind of stuck in the system. So that's where we're saying, okay, we gotta get this figured out. We gotta get this turned around. So that's where basically that's our whole aim with the RightWay program, is to be able to figure out how we help to put more of that decision back into our own system. Now you can make the choices that you can make more money, be more profitable for your operation. So we say the RightWay program, a forward-thinking approach to evaluate. Let's see what I put exactly. That evaluates your soil more thoroughly than what they've ever been able to see it. I mean, we can look at so much more that's going on in our soil to be able to dial in these parameters and to be able to help make better decisions. So I'd say that we've been viewing the soil as a dead, static, growing medium, just that's out there to produce more yield. But really that soil is a dynamic continuum that's a living organism full of trillions and trillions of living organisms that we need to help to get work for us. That's what we're going and identifying. So the RightWay system, and we'll kind of dig right into this, but essentially, okay, so you need to make more money. We all do. So we're saying instead of only more yield, you need to be more profitable. That's how you actually make money, is profit at the end of the year. So you can improve profit though, of course, yeah, by improving yield, but improving those input efficiencies, be more efficient with what you're putting out on your farm, and improving better crop quality as well. We see it huge in the edible foods and whatnot to be able to produce better crop quality. That's going to be a big thing for corn and soybeans as well going forward. Whether that corn is going into ethanol, be able to be more efficient in producing ethanol, whether it's going into an animal that has better protein content, better energy content in the grain that you're feeding to an animal, or whether that crop is being sent all around the world. It needs to have better quality to it, more nutrient dense, more nutrient, and feeding those more balanced nutrients essentially too, not just have only nitrate and phosphorus in that, but a balanced nutritional system, because we need a lot of different nutrients, so does our crop that we're trying to produce. So we're going out there, we're using really advanced agronomic zones. We'll show you them. They're sweet trained soil samplers that are actually going out there and saying, okay, what am I trying to look for here? As a farmer, put on my farmer hat, what am I trying to look for in my field? Let's be smart about this. I'm not going to pull from the wet hole. I'm not going to pull from right in the tire track or whatever that's all compacted and not representative of my farm. I'm not going to pull all my samples from directly in the corn row itself, but I'm not going to pull all of them from between the two rows of corn where the biological activity and that real activity was not really happening. We're going to pull from all throughout. And then we're doing this thorough analysis to get more thorough into our soil nutrition, but our soil biology as well. And then, so we'll show a little bit on my other company called Senior Management, where we've got benchmark soil health data, be able to report all this stuff back out, be able to have it to learn upon itself, do the data learn upon itself, that we've been doing for multiple years and all over the world. Then we're using that data to produce independent recommendations. We're not selling any product. We don't want to sell any product. You can go and buy whatever you want. But we're saying here's the most pertinent issues that you need to be able to utilize your resources on, whether that be just some of the things that we've been looking at right now, NPK and lime, but also what are the micronutrient kind of things, what else is going on in the biology, what are those issues, and then you can choose the products, whatever you want. We've been testing a whole bunch of them, and we test products not just for yield, but for overall product efficacy as well. Is it improving plant health? Is it improving that standability, those kinds of things, fending off diseases, allowing you to not have to use fungicides and not have to use as much additives, but also that product has a benefit to the soil, benefit to soil health. We're evaluating products, evaluating your land using the same data tools, the soil sampling, the tissue sampling, the aerial imagery, all of it tied together, sensors and all this stuff, utilizing the stuff from trace genomics, utilizing the other tests we're looking at here, so you can compare apples to apples. So now we're evaluating what's going on in my soil, we're evaluating products and whatnot as well. And so then the salesman, so where your Mark can go to your farm and say, hey, you need to be more efficient with your nutrients, whatever. Here's our data to back it up that we can prove that we can help you to be more efficient. Here you go. So that kind of system. We're working with guys all over the place. But now you've got more money back into your pocket at the end of the day, better soil, and a better product to sell into markets, and there's some really cool things emerging into that. So we're going to tap into these couple of first things here. We've been talking a lot about the soil as a bank account, essentially, that our old traditional testing, we've been evaluating only the intermediate assets in the soil, what should come available within the next growing season. Now with the Haney test, we're looking at what's my current assets. So it uses an extraction that's more representative of what's actually available to the plant root. When you pull out a root, you feel that kind of oily substance on the root. That's the exudates that the crop is putting back into the soil. And that oil, that small area there is called the rhizosphere. This analysis is that same kind of pH, those same compounds that the plant puts into the root or puts into the ground, is the same compounds that we're using as an extraction to evaluate what are those nutrients that are actually available in that system. And then we're hoping to improve those transactions to be able to utilize your soil as a checking account rather than a long-term savings account that, yeah, you put out your phosphorus or whatever and it just gets tied up. We need to be able to actually transact. We don't want to deplete it, but we need to be able to use those things. Kind of it takes money to make money kind of a deal. We need to be able to use this, transact with that soil. Buzz through some of this, but looking at some of these different parameters, is this an asset or a liability on your operation? How do we be able to utilize our soils to work for us? We want to build them over time. We want to build our soil balance sheet essentially over time, but we need to make sure that it's all working in our favor. So we're looking at essentially at, when we're going to evaluate the soil, we're saying, okay, what is your soil net worth? And evaluating with the RightWay program, we're able to assess that very thoroughly, very cheap as well, and give you a lot better idea of what is going on out there. It's just providing more data that we can now utilize to help you. So we're going to get into our zones and whatnot here now. So this stuff has been sweet. Okay, so this is our home farm north of Washington, and mom and dad walked in, ladies who walked in here, come all the way from Chicago too for this too. But so on the left is just our soil survey. So our soil type map that we've been using as kind of the standard, but this was developed in the 70s and 80s. And not that that's a long time ago, Mark. but there's a lot better tools that we can utilize now. So we've got our own soil type map. Everyone else goes out there and they do a grid soil sampling program just like this. We've had it done on our farm for years. They do a grid soil sampling program that's just, it's a computer metric essentially that, I mean, Josh and I put this together. You put those grids out there, it helps to dial it in for you, but it doesn't necessarily say, okay, why would I want to pull a sample there? But whoever's pulling it is just hired, their job is to pull the sample. We're now able to make very intense zones, and these look really intense. It takes some agronomics on our end to be able to dial this in even more to figure out where do I want to pull zones from. But we're utilizing a company out of Minnesota that I spent a summer working for that utilizes satellite imagery to evaluate minute differences in soil coloration and texture, which is organic matter, soil properties, with sand, silt, clay, whatnot, dialing in those inherent soil properties, dialing in those soil types and whatnot, but giving us a much better look at what's going on. So it does have a little bit of some similarities. You can kind of see some of the same shapes and whatnot as in the basic soil or the old soil type map. But we're really dialing this in now.
There's a big key factor on the 2.5 acre grids versus our zones. So if you look at this, like northeast corner, if you were to go out there and you pull just those 6 samples, you really don't get any of this zone as part of that sample that you're testing versus our zones that we're creating. Our zone is a lot different in that we're able to pull a sample from either here, here, or here, and we're actually seeing the same field, but we're going to have a different result than what they're going to be pulling. So this is going to be, again, just your co-op 2.5 acre grid, and what they're seeing, which may not change at all on those 6 samples, versus just 3 of our samples, we would be able to see a complete difference in that soil.
Yeah. Because we're looking at what is the different properties going on in this soil, then we have our boots on the ground to go and say, what is the difference that we're seeing? It's showing up in yield, it's showing up in the aerial imagery and whatnot. We're going to go out there and actually assess what is making that difference. And then we can treat it differently with our management practices. But yeah, no, really good point. So we'll show some examples on this, and we're going to continue to develop a lot of really good data in behind this even more. So some of the data that we're pulling through, and we're not going to dig into this too much right now, but a traditional soil, so we're still going to keep doing traditional soil sampling, malic extraction, that gives us those intermediate assets. Where's my phosphorus at? Where's my potassium? Where's my base percentages, my exchange capacity, pH, organic matter? That's all good. But now we're going to use the Haney test as well. So you guys won't see these reports. These are an example. We'll show you a snippet of what ours is going to look like. But these are coming directly from the lab. Gives some good information, but we don't know exactly how to use them. So on the right side is a Haney test from Brookside Labs, which is the primary lab that we're going to be using. So this test is now looking at what's my biological activity in the soil. It collects the CO2 coming off the soil. So microbes breathe off CO2 just like we do. They're respiring and whatnot. We can collect that CO2 coming off the soil to look at how active is that soil. Microbes eat that live biocarbon, organic carbon in the system. That's what we're identifying next with the organic carbon parameters. They eat organic carbon by utilizing organic nitrogen to produce enzymes. We're looking at that organic nitrogen. We're giving some overall scores and then the micronutrients as well. But the difference here is we're looking at, okay, what should be coming available? What have we been looking at before? But then what is actually available right now? And because we're pulling soil samples, so another tidbit on some of the work that we've been doing leading up to this point, we've been pulling soil samples weekly in our test plans. So that's a little different than our traditional once every 4-year soil sampling program. We're pulling soil samples weekly to identify how do these parameters change over time. And Brody showed some of these that he's been doing about once a month. We've got some really intense stuff. So we're working directly with Dr. Rick Haney, who's the guy who developed this deal. He's with the ARS down in Texas. So we're sending him directly soil samples on a weekly basis to dial all this in. We've been doing a lot of work with cover crops and nutrient management no-till, but getting some crazy data on showing those differences throughout the year. And because we have all that data, now we're able to really scale it up and use it. So I've got another company called Soil Reporting and Management, Senior Management, web-based kind of a tool essentially to be able to house all this data together and report it in a system that you can actually use it. This is a really, really brief snippet of it. It's literally being built right now by my software developer. So essentially, you're going to be able to log into this system to be able to access your data. So because we're dealing with so much stuff, paper reports are going to be, we're going to have some paper reports and whatnot that you're going to be able to take out of this, but we're going to be looking at so much stuff that you don't want to deal with that much paper and attempt to dig through it. So when you log into this system, so that essentially we're going to be able to pull soil samples, get them sent to the lab, data gets done in a week, and you'll be notified, hey, your soil sample reports are ready. Josh, myself, and Ryan, we're going to be looking through them, checking on things, seeing what's going on in that sample, make sure everything's all good, are there any red flags, what's going on, and then you'll be able to see this report. Essentially, when you log in, it will show my basic kind of benchmark. My basic dashboard is essentially what this is looking at. So I need to know some of these basic ratios. My whole approach to soil is we need our soil to be in balance. This whole thing, it just needs to be in balance. For whatever soil it is, any soil can be in balance. To me, that's the definition of being healthy. So we're looking at some of those balances, carbon and nitrogen, calcium, magnesium, potassium, to sodium, and a bunch more stuff as well. Over on the right, it'll have some of your Haney scores and how that compares to the rest of the group. These are all just example kind of stuff on here. Then what we're going to have in the middle is actually a bar graph system that will show your parameters versus the group parameters versus where do you want to be, what's the desired parameters. So the idea is that this will be all very interactive. So, okay, I'm down here in my soil types for Jefferson County, or you can be able to sort by my soil type or by my management practice. I only want to compare against anhydrous guys because I'm anhydrous, or I only want to compare against chicken litter guys because I use chicken litter, or I only want to compare against other cover crop users because I use cover crop, or I'm not a cover crop guy, I want to compare against cover crop, whatever it may be. I just want to be able to compare, see where do I fit compared to the population, essentially, the group that we've got into our system. And we've got the largest independent data set of this Haney data here now that we've accumulated over the last couple of years with no outside funding and all just direct farmer driven. So this is going to give that overall dashboard, and then we'll tie in some weather and that kind of stuff. We'll eventually work into this. Building as fast as we can. And then on the bottom will be, okay, what's my takeaways? Over on the left side, it'll get a little bit more detailed that you'll be able to see, here's my soil basics, here's my soil health kind of parameters like my biological activity, the carbon, the nitrogen, that kind of stuff. And then it'll dig down below that as well. Here's my nitrogen, here's my phosphorus, here's my potassium, here's my micronutrients. And ideally, you're going to be able to download those variable rate reports or variable rate product recommendations right out of this. For right now, it'll be Josh is going to be building them and then sending them back out. But soon this stuff's going to be completely automated, tied right in. So where we're looking at here then is to be able to tie with, so the back end of our system and the back end of the Trace Genomics platform are both on the same server. It's one of the gigantic cloud servers, but they have kind of the same back end system. So we're looking at being able to have, here's my Trace Genomics report coming right out of this as well. Be able to have all that tied in right into this system. That way you can see all of this information right on there. So eventually we'll get the tissue samples and all that kind of information on here as well. But some crazy stuff that we're getting built here, but we're real excited to be able to house all this data together to make it actionable. That's the whole deal. Is how do I utilize all this new information that now we're seeing? Here's an example on what do these recommendations look like, and this is some crazy stuff. And okay, I do have to preface it though that these are not real numbers, but they are the same numbers back and forth, but showing the whole point here is to show how specific we can make a recommendation versus when we were doing just a grid sample, how specific those recommendations are. And they're gonna look a little bit different, of course, and other people are gonna use algorithms differently. We're gonna have this full system all up and going here for this fall and to show a lot of these examples, comparing the old system of grids and basic soil analysis versus ours. The takeaway here is pretty clear. The same zones, the same grids that we had on the slides before, but we plugged in phosphorus numbers into here and made a recommendation off of them. The same numbers from an example farm that Josh has used before, and showing the differences there and how we're able to utilize this. So essentially the zones that are coming for this field, the zones coming from our company in Minnesota, there were 73 zones I think they started with on this farm.
Yep.
So they took this 80-acre farm and made 73 management zones on that farm. Now, of course, we can't go out there and sample 73 management zones. We look more like a 10-acre grid, a 10-acre zone system. So we would go and sample about 8 soil samples out there and say, okay, these 8 samples best correlate with these certain zones, at least from this zone. And then, okay, those heavier zones, we adjust our rate based on that. The lighter zones, we adjust our rate and interpolate together. The spatial work is already done for us. So in an old system, say this one had, this one had 25 parts per million phosphorus, this one had 30 parts per million phosphorus, this one was at 35 parts per million phosphorus. So see, it interpolates that recommendation across that, but just at those computer generated points. So we're looking at that actual spatial system on how do I dial that in to be so much more specific to those actual soil parameters, actual soil type differences, crazy stuff.
So, and the big thing is the grid sampling, that's 28 samples. We only did 8 samples on this grid, and this variable rate is a lot different from that one. And again, going back to my first example of pulling them 6 samples, you might not hit each zone, so you had 6 samples of the exact same soil test results. So we're taking our samples and we are dividing them up into 10-acre zones. So this may be zone A or 1 or 8 or whatever number you want, and this is zone 2 or 3. So what we're doing is we're correlating that based on the zones that we're getting, so those 77 zones. So if it falls in that parameter 1 through 8, it's going to get X amount of a nutrient recommendation. So you can still go off of that, and you're going to get more in-depth variable rate recommendation versus 28 different samples based on a 2.5-acre grid where it's going to get just one flat rate, and then it's just going to jump up to the interpolate it.
And it's going to interpolate it just based on an algorithm all the way across, not necessarily the actual spatial differences. It's just going to say this one's here, draw me a line in between. We're actually saying it's not as, nothing in nature is actually a straight line like that.
Right.
It's a curved system. So some cool stuff. But we'll, yeah, this is what's really, really exciting too, to be able to really dial this in. Just wanted to relate this back into, okay, so we're doing the super advanced soil sampling system because land evaluations and whatnot are going to be tied to these same soil platforms, same soil testing tools that we're looking at. So taking the basic soil samples, the Haney soil samples, and the Trace Genomics soil samples, Plus, we're doing some physical analysis as well. There's some things being developed along those lines. We're doing some very basic ones at this point to give an overall land evaluation. So now we're just helping you to manage for that system as it's becoming the normal, which is happening extremely fast, which is exciting. But that's essentially how this all ties together, is that we want to be able to manage for short-term improvements, but long-term sustainability that future generations are going to see as well. All right, just boiling this all down, kind of wrapping things up, this program, like we said, is a zone kind of system that we can produce actionable data now off of, so much more in-depth. It's just given more in-depth, more tools than what we've been able to see before, but extremely cost-effective as well. Those cutting-edge zones, I like them a lot. We can use them at scale, and we're going to be using them in our stuff in Africa and everything too. We've already tested it out. We're going to be using them all over. These next-level agronomic tools and whatnot, like what Trace has, what we're seeing with the Haney test, those kind of things, but leading into when more sensors and that kind of stuff are being used, we're able to accommodate all of those new tools as they continue to come about. Accurate, cost-effective recommendations, as you were seeing there. Some example stuff, but we're going to be continuing to post a lot more on what we're seeing, some example kind of things. And really it's addressing those underlying soil issues that we weren't seeing before. What's holding us back? We fixed a lot of our basic soil issues. Now what else is going on? How else can we help your operation? How can we be more efficient to utilize what we're putting on? What's awesome too is we're trying to make this extremely cost effective. The soil sampling program is only $7.85 an acre. We do have to do a one-time zone setup fee. It's only $2 to be able to get that. And all of our signups and everything and our sales materials, it's all an online system that you can literally plug in your information, plug in your boundaries and all that right on there. And if it was, we're obviously not going to go pull the soil samples right now. We're going to pull them after we harvest. But this system can work extremely fast. Like the whole system, start to finish, 8 days, 8-day turnaround time on the whole thing. And then of course we're going to be able to work with you to dial this in. What products do you want to use? Are you going to use MAP, or are you going to use anhydrous or urea or UAN for your nitrogen program? Are you using a specific manure or litter or compost? We can dial all that into this system. So very cool stuff. But we'll keep on rolling through. A little bit long, but I get all excited. So, but we do have a lot more information and whatnot out. We'll stick around. We'd love to hang out and chat and have another beer or two. And then Josh and myself will be back around, of course, as well to sit down and help to look at how this can benefit your operation. The whole aim for this fall is we're going to be rolling this out on quite a few thousand acres here this fall as we continue to ramp up. And we've already been doing a lot of it up in Washington County. But I think a good tool to help you guys to be able to be more efficient, just to